At about 10:30 p.m. on Thursday night, February 2nd, I was downstairs in the garage making sure I had everything I needed packed in the car before I went to bed. I knew my wife could go into labor any minute now. After all, February 2nd was our official due date. When I walked back into the house, she was standing at the top of the stairs looking down at me. And the lights were all off, so it was a fairly ominous scene when she said, "I think we need to go to the hospital." Her little contraction app, the tracking app, had informed her that it was go time. Now keep in mind, Austin, Texas had been experiencing yet another unprecedented winter freeze for several days leading up to this fateful moment. And I have struggled with anxiety and panic attacks while driving on the highway since I was 21 years old. So driving my wife safely to the hospital had been my biggest concern even before the freeze took place, because the hospital is just over 20 miles north of our house. Straight highway the whole way there. Not ideal. I had literally prayed that my son would wait until at least Thursday or Friday to be born, and even talked to him through my wife's belly, asking him to stay in there a little longer so the roads would be safe, because freezing conditions were allegedly going to let up by then. So fortunately, by February 2nd, the freeze had subsided enough to where driving conditions on the highway were normal. And the second she informed me it was go time, excitement and happiness overrode any previously existing anxiety I might have had. That 15-minute trip north was literally the easiest highway drive I've had in 15 years. When we got to the hospital, for those of you who have had kids, you know, like, first they put you in an observation room, and a nurse came in and asked like 20 minutes worth of questions, just a shitload of questions. Then she checked my wife's dilation. 10 centimeters is when it's time to push and meet your baby, but we weren't there yet. So at one point, they actually considered sending us home to wait it out until she was closer to active labor. And considering how excited I was and how easy the trip to the hospital had been for me, I was like, oh, you've got to be fucking shitting me. So we waited and wondered and worried and waited and wondered and worried. We're just sitting there with my wife trying to sleep on the hospital bed while the baby's heartbeat filled the room from, they've got all these sensors attached to her belly, womp, 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 for hours. Hours. While I sat there in this tiny chair next to her and him, praying I wouldn't have to make that drive again. And at one point, they actually told us, quote, "Baby isn't doing as well as we'd like him to be," end quote, without providing any actual fucking details on what that meant. And while keeping a straight face and maintaining external calm for my wife, internally, I was losing my shit, because House of the Dragon Season 1 aired during the beginning of our pregnancy. And for those of you who watched, you know what kind of paranoia that created inside me. So finally, at about 3 a.m. on what was then Friday morning, they decided they were just going to check us in rather than send us home, because we were close enough to where they didn't want to send us all the way back and then have us drive all the way back out. Thank God. So about 4 a.m., we finally got into our room. And by 4:30 in the morning, I was passed out cold on a couch that was just a few inches too short for me to get any version of comfortable. And I remember laying there thinking about how much this fucking couch sucked, but knowing I couldn't say a word to my wife, who was far more uncomfortable than I was, or will probably ever be, with a little human being inside her preparing to exit. So I suffered in silence, with no one to talk to about my pain. But that doesn't have to be the case for you, because today's episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Putting yourself and your mental health first doesn't have to be a challenge thanks to Talkspace. Using Talkspace feels a little like having a mental health professional in your pocket. Talkspace offers both therapy and psychiatry, and being able to reach out to your provider anytime, anywhere makes taking care of your mental health super easy. Working through things in therapy can be tough, but connecting with your therapist won't be with Talkspace. Plus, you can get help with or without insurance. Most insured members only pay a $25 copay or less, though. Talkspace lets you send messages to your dedicated therapist in the Talkspace platform, which allows you to update them on the challenges and triumphs you're facing in real time, so you don't have to wait for your next session. With Talkspace, you set goals with your therapist, and they hold you accountable to make sure you're really progressing. Therapy can help you shift your perspective, find tools to cope in difficult times, and be a guiding light through life. I've been in therapy for over, a decade now. Can't more highly recommend it, but I understand it can be daunting getting started. But getting started is way less daunting with Talkspace. They make connecting with a licensed therapist easy, so you can stop setting aside your own mental well-being. I wholeheartedly recommend Talkspace for therapy. You can sign up online, get a personalized match with a provider that's right for you, typically within 48 hours. You can text, video, or send messages to your licensed therapist, so it's incredibly convenient to have virtual sessions from the comfort of your home. And as a listener of the Ross Bolen podcast, you'll get $100 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and use code RBP. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and use the code RBP to get $100 off your first month and show your support for the show. That's code RBP at Talkspace.com. So the next morning, I guess that morning, it was morning by the time I got to sleep, our doctor comes in around 7:30 a.m. and he tells us, we're definitely having a baby today, but we've got a little ways to go before, active labor. Basically, we're going to be doing some more waiting around. And the pregnancy process was challenging for a variety of reasons over the course of, what ends up being 10 months. And between that and childbirth, I gained an enormous respect for women that you can't really comprehend until you've experienced a pregnancy and a childbirth with one. But damn, I gotta say, that waiting game, waiting to meet the future, waiting for your life to change forever, it's absolutely grueling, even when you're not the one carrying the child. That last few weeks or so before we got to the hospital, everything I did at work, at home, it just felt stupid and insignificant by comparison. Like nothing really mattered except for the health and safety of my wife and child. So it was so hard to focus on anything, really. That was my least favorite part, the waiting game, that last few weeks. So when we were at the hospital and they told us it was going to be at least a few more hours, I was just like, fuck, come on. There's just nothing like that waiting around to be irrevocably changed forever. It's like, I don't know, it's like waiting to be released from jail or something. That's the only thing I can compare it to. It's probably not the best comparison. Honestly, I don't remember much of the next several hours, as I was like running on fumes from having not gotten to sleep on that tiny couch until 4:30 in the morning. It was just fumes and adrenaline. There was lots of nurses coming in and out, checking on my wife, not really saying shit to me. Like some of them acted like I wasn't even there, which was a little weird and awkward, but I get it. They've got a job to do. That job is not me. Then finally at about I want to say it was 1:30 p.m. on Friday afternoon, our doctor came back in. He checked my wife again, and he told us, look, I've got a meeting off campus. So off of the hospital grounds, right, from 2 to 3. And that by his estimation, we wouldn't be delivering before he got back, that we'd have plenty of time. And so then he just bounced from the room. And this is our doctor that, we had met with over the course of the full pregnancy. Especially that last couple months, you're going to the hospital a lot to get checked up on, see how baby's doing, see how mom is doing. And this is our guy. He was incredible. I'm not going to throw him a shout out here because I don't even know if he wants one. Maybe that's inappropriate. I'm not sure what the rules are as far as doctor-patient confidentiality or whatever, if that applies to podcasters. But the guy was great. So, I mean, I assume, that he knows what he's talking about. He's like, I've got this meeting I've got to go to. You guys wait here, and I'll be back in plenty of time before the baby comes. So at like 2:45 in the afternoon, again, more waiting, more wondering, more worrying. I was like, oh shit, I haven't eaten anything. And it's well past lunchtime at this point. I have to eat so I don't just pass out when this finally goes down. So when one of the nurses came back in to check on my wife, I was like, okay, perfect opportunity for me to head down to the hospital cafeteria because I didn't want to leave her all alone. And they also have sneaky, delicious pizza down there. So I order my pizza. And I got like their version of like a Meat Lovers. It was like pepperoni and sausage or whatever. And they've got one of those ovens that's like a conveyor belt, like they make your sandwich on at Subway or Quiznos or what have you, where, they put the sandwich on the end and it goes through and that's what toasts your sandwich, except this one is for pizza. I'm assuming they use it for sandwiches too. I don't know, though. I ordered a pizza. So instead of it just going through once, I watched the person's pizza being made in front of me in line. It goes through 3 times. They let it go through. They take it. They put it back on the conveyor belt. It goes through again. They take it. They put it back on the conveyor belt. It goes through again. And after the 3rd time, that's when you get your pizza, right? So I order my pizza. I'm waiting for it to come out of the oven or get done on the conveyor belt, as it were, when I check my phone. Like I just kind of been standing there like in a daze. Again, like I haven't slept much. I'm excited. I'm tired. I'm worried. I don't like being out of the room away from my wife when we could be having a baby any minute now. And I hadn't been checking my phone because I was just kind of in a daze. When I pull my phone out, of course, I have a text message from her. And it just says, "You need to get back up here." And I was like, oh my God. Like I hadn't left the room all day because I didn't want this exact thing to happen. So I look over and my pizza is on its 2nd round on the conveyor belt, just like going down the conveyor belt in slow motion. Like it was, it was awful. And the dude takes it and like puts it on the end and it's going back through again. It was like the longest 2 minutes of my fucking life. By the time he was ready to hand it to me, I just ripped it out of the cafeteria worker's hands and sprinted off like he probably thought I was a nut. Although in hindsight, everybody there probably knew like that guy's about to have a baby. I sprinted the entire way to the elevator, then back up to our room, and at 3:23 p.m. So like I got back up there at about, I don't know, it was like 3 o'clock, and the nurse was still in there, and she was like, "Yeah, coincidentally, right after you left the room, I checked her dilation again, and she's at 10 inches or 10 centimeters, not inches. That would be a hell of a dilation, but she's at 10 centimeters. And I was like, oh my God, how, like, you've got to be kidding me. Like she went from like halfway there to all the way there in like an hour period. And it was just like, I just happened to leave right when the lady checked her and things were ready to kick off. So, I shoved a couple of pieces of pizza down my throat, just like ate them as quickly as I could. I didn't even eat the whole thing. It was like a little personal pan pizza, 4 pieces total. I got 2 of them down. Again, shockingly good pizza for a fucking hospital. I was just like, wow, this is like, I could do this. I could live off this cafeteria food at the hospital. It's not all that bad. I expected it to just be utter garbage. It was great. Shouts to St. David's North in Austin, Texas. But at 3:23 p.m., I remember they put my wife's legs up into like the stirrups, where like, you're spreading your legs to get ready to have the baby, and they've got little foot holders for you. You're up in these stirrups. And I took a picture of her without her knowing, laying there awkwardly in these stirrups because I thought it might be the last picture I ever take of her pregnant, right? And I was right, because the next photo on my phone after that one I took at 3:23 is at 3:27 of her holding my son. And in that 4 minutes, man, everything changed for me. Like, first of all, right before they got her to start pushing, our doctor did not make it back in time. Of course he didn't. He said 2 to 3. And he like, I don't know if traffic or whatever in Austin, but there weren't that many people out on the roads because of the freeze. So maybe his meeting ran long, but it's like I said, 3:23. I took the picture with the stirrups. This dude is still not back, so they have to call in one of the other doctors from his practice. This wonderful woman who did a phenomenal job. But at 3:23, they've got her up in the stirrups. At 3:27, I take the photo of her of her holding my son. But in between, right before they ask her to start pushing, the doctor that is this woman who's stepping in for our guy, she asks me if I want to assist by holding one of my wife's legs. Like there's a nurse on the other side of the table holding one leg up, and she asks me if I want to hold the other leg. And in the weeks leading up to the birth, like I had told myself, that I wasn't going to look, that I was just going to try and get through it and like maintain consciousness. But in the moment, I was like, you know what? I may never have this opportunity again in my entire life to be a part, like an actual physical part, like to assist with the birth of my child or any child for that matter. So screw it. I'm holding the leg. And I was just like, yeah, I don't even know if I spoke out loud or I just like walked up and like grabbed her leg, but I was holding a leg. And a few weeks prior, people check in with you when you're about to have a kid. Like I was getting text messages from all kinds of different people throughout my life, aunts and uncles and old friends that I hadn't spoken to. And one special text message I got was from my childhood best friend. And he had texted me and, checked in on us, seen how we were doing. And he said, no matter what you do, don't look. And obviously he meant like, don't stare into the depths of your wife's vagina while the baby's coming out or whatever. But again, in the moment, I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm not missing this. And my wife, just unbelievable. Like I have a video where you can hear in the background, the doctor says that was a perfect delivery. She pushed 4 times. She was so strong and so calm, such a champion. I'm so proud of her, and I'm so proud of myself for picking my son, the most wonderful mom. On push 3, when I'm sitting there holding the leg, and I'm trying to alternate between like paying attention. I'm staring at my wife's face as she's going through this labor, and looking over at the doctor to like get a feel for if everything's okay, and like catching a glimpse of what's happening in between. You know what I'm saying? And at one point I look over to check, and I just see his little head pop out into the world. And it was the most surreal thing I have ever and possibly will ever experience. It was crazy. Like I get tears in my eyes just thinking about this moment. Like he just was like, bloop, and then he was there. Like he was out. And she pushed one more time after that. His head popped out first, and they were like, one more, you can do it. And that was it. And I mean, it was, when he came out, first of all, he was purple because he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck. But for some reason, I just knew he was okay. Like it, just an instinctive feeling, like I knew, like it didn't even faze me that he was discolored at that moment, because I was like, nah, he's fine. And then on top of that, the doctors and nurses handed him to my wife so quickly that I knew he must be fine. And thank God that he was. But it was kind of a weird moment. He was a purple little conehead for about 2 minutes before his skin colors started to soften and his little head started to shape itself back to normal. But like when they squeeze out of there, like it's a lot of pressure. And so his head was like elongated at first, which is just really funny in photos to see his little purple body and his little elongated head. I literally counted them, 78 photos and videos in my phone from 3:27 p.m. on February 3rd, 2023, when he was born. From 3:27 to 3:32, I have 78 photos and videos from a 5-minute span, because I was just snapping photos. Like people had told me, have your phone out, be taking pictures, the entire time. Like you're going to want these memories because everything happens so fast and you're in such a state that your memory doesn't function as well as you would want it to. And you have all that adrenaline and you're going off no sleep and it's just a lot. So make sure you take a lot of pictures. So for those of you who have been listening to the show for a long time, you'll remember I had gone and got the new iPhone in preparation for this like a few months ago. But my dumb ass, I ordered the wrong fucking phone and I actually ended up downgrading my camera from the iPhone Pro Max that I had prior. It was like a slightly less impressive camera, and I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So I went through this whole process of like making sure I got the newest, best iPhone with the best camera just for this moment, like just so I would be able to take the best possible pictures and videos when my son was being born. So I'm snapping nonstop, man. And I'm so happy I did. That's one of the things, like if you're going to have a kid, that I can't more highly recommend that you document it as best you can as a dad, because there's not a lot else you can do other than like hold a leg and pray. And in the middle of me like snapping all these pictures and, you know, she's holding RJ, my son, and I'm getting these incredible photos of my wife and she's crying and it's so emotional. Obviously, it's like this crazy, crazy moment that you can't even describe. And then one of the student nurses, like the lady who had the other leg, this chick, I ended up finding out she was a student nurse, which is just, what an insane job the delivery nurses and doctors have. That's what a gig where you're a part of like the miracle of life. Every day is just like the wildest thing to me. I could, like, the whole time I was in the hospital, I was in awe of these people, and they were all so amazing and helpful and kind, and like the bedside manner was off the charts. It was just unbelievable, the experience we had. And but this student nurse was like, you want me like to get some of all three of you? And I was like, I was just kind of shook by that. I didn't expect that. And I was just kind of like, what the fuck? I hand her my phone. And this lady is a big part of the reason that I've got 78 photos and videos in a 5-minute span, because she went absolutely ham with this thing. Like, I mean, nobody has ever documented anything with the pace that this woman did. And it's crazy because probably 2 hours before he was born, this professional photographer came into the room with like her fucking camera, like the hospital photographer, and was like, you guys want me to document this? Like, I'll be in the room and I'll take photos as it's happening. And we were like, what? Get the fuck out of here. Like, I mean, we didn't say that. We were nice about it, but it was like, no, what? This is fucking bizarre. What, you professional photographer in here with like a fucking tripod, like just going off? And we didn't need it in the end, because this student nurse crushed. She was unbelievable. She even got a video of me cutting the cord, which is like another thing that, I mean, leading up to it, we had done like some birthing classes and I had read stuff. And I know that traditionally, you know, sometimes dads cut the cord, but it kind of slipped my mind. Like it wasn't something top of mind. I completely forgot it was going to happen. So the doctor asked me if I wanted to cut the cord. And it was another one of those moments, just like holding the leg, just like watching him pop out, that I was like, wasn't even a split. It was a split second decision. There was no real thought or consideration. I was like, abso-fucking-lutely, give me the scissors. And she got a video of me cutting the cord, and I've got it on my phone. I still watch it like once a day because it was just such a, I don't even know how to put it. Like, human being, we're like aliens, man. Like, you don't know how alien and animal we are until you watch one of us get born and cut the fucking cord. Like, there's a cord that provides you with all the sustenance that you need while you grow in the womb. A cord. It is on some alien shit, and it was just crazy, like that symbolic cutting of the cord and the physical, actual, literal cutting of the cord, and me getting to be a part of that. It was wild. And look, I knew going into this that my son's birth would be the coolest moment of my entire life, right? Like, I'm not naive. I'm not an idiot. I knew, and I knew the whole experience would be emotional, and unlike anything I'd ever been through before. And I'd had countless parents attempt to describe to me how special the entire thing would be. But as I expected, there aren't really words you can use to describe the feeling or the experience, like the feeling of watching a little baby you helped make take its first breath in this world and open his eyes for the first time. The look on my wife's face the first time she held him, it was just all so surreal, to the point that like nothing I say here today can possibly come close to doing justice to what it felt like in those moments. And I understand now why people have multiple kids. Because if you get through this, or even in the waiting process, I was there in the hospital waiting for him to be born, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, why in the name of God would anybody go through this more than once? It's so stressful. It's so scary. There's so much unknown. There's so many factors. There's so little you can do, especially as a man. You feel so helpless because it's not your body. It's the baby is in this woman, and you're just there. You're just this fucking doofus waiting for your whole life to change, and you don't know when it's going to happen, and it's like there's so much that goes into it, and it's such a long pregnancy that 9 months, 10 months, it feels like an eternity. The waiting game, like I said, is grueling. And I just remember thinking, like, why would anybody do this more than once? And like, I was thinking about like my grandma. She has like 8 brothers and sisters. She's like one of 9. And like that concept to me, like, somebody did this 9 fucking times? That's insane. Literally insane. Like her mom should be checked. Like she's passed away, obviously. But like she must have been a total lunatic. How could anybody go through this that many times? And then in those moments, as I look back at them, I know why. It's because there's nothing better than that. I don't think it gets better than that. It is life. It does. I don't think it does. All the moments with your children after they're born obviously are phenomenal, but there's something special about that. The beginning of life, the beginning of a human being's life, the first moments that they're coming into the world and that they join us in it. It's crazy to think about it. I'm 35 years old, and when I look at my life and everything I've been through, everything I've experienced, everything that led up to this moment, everything I've gone through, everything, all the highs and the lows and the crying and the joy and the pain and the suffering on top of the moments of great bliss and pleasure. It's life is such a special thing, and watching one start is the coolest thing I think you can probably do as a human. And now I understand why people go back for more. As hard as it is and as scary as it can be, there's nothing like it. And I mean, I told my wife, like, you know, at the end of pregnancy, I was like, I don't think I can watch you go through this again. Just because it's so uncomfortable and it's so long and it's so tiring. And it just seemed like such a beating. Like I was fucking exhausted and miserable at different points, and I wasn't the one going through it physically. I cannot speak enough to the amount of respect I gained for women and what y'all go through to keep the human race going. It's crazy. But yeah, as I scroll back, like I've kept this photo up on my cell phone screen the whole time we've been recording of my son, and as I scroll back through those 78 photos and videos in my phone, it's like I'm right back there in that room, experiencing it all over again for the first time, and I hope I never lose the ability to go back to that feeling of knowing like exactly why I'm here on this earth and exactly what my most important job is for the rest of the time I'm blessed to experience life. To go back to that moment where I gained purpose like I've never felt before. I've never really struggled with purpose. I've always found a way to find mine. And a big part of my purpose, as I've seen it over the last several years, has been, in part, this show. And even in my darkest moments doing this show and being able to connect with other people through the microphone and through social media and meet so many of you and talk to so many people going through hard shit, like similarly to what I've gone through and try to help people through it, like that was purpose for me, but like nothing compares to this. Nothing. And I will never be the same. Once again, for like the fourth time in as many years, the old me has become a thing of the past, and yet another new Ross was born the second RJ Bolen's little head popped out all purple and covered in goo. It was like I was like the Grinch on Christmas. My heart grew 3 sizes that day. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mind Bloom. If you don't live with anxiety and depression, it's easy to just look at someone, maybe someone you love, and wonder why they can't just get up and get going and fix themselves. Or maybe you're wondering this about yourself. You see others living their life when you'd settle for one day without the feeling of everything collapsing in on you, and it's hard. But it doesn't have to be this way. Mind Bloom knows this and can help. Sometimes it takes more than just changing your routine, though, or meditating more, or working out, attending therapy, or whatever. You need something to unlock your brain, a new way of thinking about and seeing the world, and maybe that thing is guided ketamine therapy from Mind Bloom. At-home ketamine therapy is a new tool to improve your mental health, and Mind Bloom is the leader in at-home ketamine therapy, having safely helped thousands of people overcome their anxiety and depression. Unlike traditional talk therapy, ketamine works quickly, and it doesn't have the unpleasant side effects of traditional antidepressants. In a study of over 1,200 Mind Bloom clients, 89% reported improvements in their anxiety and depression after only 2 sessions. That's spectacular in terms of results. Right now, Mind Bloom is offering our listeners $100 off your first 6-session program when you sign up at mindbloom.com/RBP and use promo code RBP at checkout. You just go to mindbloom.com/RBP. That's mindbloom.com/RBP. Use promo code RBP. You get $100 off your first 6-session program today. That's mindbloom.com/RBP, promo code RBP. So 11 days after RJ was born was Valentine's Day. He was born on 2/3/23, double Michael Jordan. Sick date to be born. Very stoked on that. As many of you know, I'm a big sneakerhead. I like shoes a lot. I've got a lot of Jordans. I had bought my son a couple different pairs of Jordans leading up to his birth, little baby Jordans, baby booty Jordans. They're fucking awesome. I love them. They're the cutest thing ever. But 11 days later was Valentine's Day. That was the anniversary, the first anniversary of me proposing to my wife. We covered a lot of ground in under a year, an absurd amount of ground, my wife and I, in under a year, in large part because we were so sure and so on the same page about the life we wanted to build together, a big part of that life being our family. So I've officially been a stepdad since April 24th, 2022, when we got married. And I love my stepdaughter as much as I love my wife and son. Seeing the way my wife loved her daughter was a huge part of what made me fall in love with her, because I wanted that for my kids. I wanted my son to have a mommy that loved him the way that my wife loves my now stepdaughter. But obviously, I was not there when she was born. I met my wife when my now stepdaughter was just over 1 year old. And man, it's just a totally different experience parenting a newborn baby that's a 1-year-old or than a 1-year-old. Like it's insane. I remember when I met my wife, and first of all, she's obviously like her legal guardian and caretaker and has always led the way as far as parenting goes in our house. So I've always kind of been like, it's been an easy ride for me. And when I met my wife and she, the first time I met her daughter, I was like kind of taken aback by how easy it seemed like it was going to be. It's like, man, it's mostly fun and amazing and cool. And like, she was such a good sleeper. And it was just like, wow, I don't know what all these parents are complaining about. This is easy. But but yeah, I'd been around babies before, obviously, like, but never had to care for one. I had no idea. Like, I feel like such a jackass when I look back at, like, I used to judge. I have friends who've had kids for years. Like, some of them have like 8-year-olds now and shit. And when they would complain about like how tired they were, or when I would text one of them and they would say, I'd be like, what are you getting into tonight? It'd be like 7:30 p.m. on a Friday. And they'd be like, ha ha, I'm in bed going to sleep. I was like, what a loser. What an absolute loser. And I was ignorant. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. If you're one of those people that I gave shit to for not like wanting to go out or do whatever on the weekend when you had kids, my bad, dude. I didn't know. I had no idea how much work goes into it, how little sleep you get, like how. I mean, I like knew, like obviously, like on paper, like I knew, like, well, yeah, the kid's got to eat every 3 hours for the first several weeks of its life, first few months of its life, however long. And I knew in the back, like I knew on paper what it looked like, but like you don't know until you know. And now I know, and I'm just like, holy shit. I didn't, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's like the best a lot possible, like the best version of being overwhelmed possible, having experienced a lot of different versions of overwhelming nonsense. I think I can speak to that confidently, but I just didn't really know. And I feel like my stepdaughter being such a champ as a little 1-year-old, 2-year-old, she's 4 years old now. But she tricked me. I feel like she deceived me. Like she was such a killer little kid, that a little 1-year-old, that I was just like, what's another one going to do? It can't be that bad. But babies, man, that is like, it is a trip. First of all, everybody told me, like, in all the parenting courses and newborn courses will tell you, like, their first 2 poops are like this, like, black tar. And I'd even seen pictures of it, like, in one of the YouTube courses I took. But nothing prepares you for, like, seeing that first shit that your kid took that's just, like, an unholy alien goo. Again, we are fucking aliens. I don't even understand what the difference is between us and hypothetical aliens anymore. Like, we are them. That's us. We're already here and doing it. We're the freakiest, weirdest version of an animal that has ever existed on this planet. We're ridiculous, the human beings, but that black tar poo was something else. But, I mean, the sheer amount of diapers that newborn babies go through. Like, my son is 3 weeks old today. 3 weeks old. This kid is crushing 15, 20 diapers a day. 15, 20 diapers a day. I mean, there must be a landfill somewhere that's just a fucking mile-high pile of newborn diapers. And I don't want to see it or smell it, but it's got to be out there somewhere. It's crazy how many diapers these kids go through. I am still wrapping my head, my feeble mind, around the amount of times he poos and pees in a day. It's madness. And speaking of the poos and the pees, the kid, he fucking... The first time I heard him take a dump, we were in the hospital room, the postpartum room. Like, after you have a baby, so you start out in that observation room I told you about. Then they check you into the room you're going to give birth in, the labor and delivery room. And then after you have the baby, after a few hours of monitoring you, you get moved to a postpartum room, which is where you stay for a couple of nights or whatever until they're ready to check you out and release you into the world, which is still shocking how quickly it happens. They're like, all right, and now you go do parenting at home with no doctors or nurses around to save you if anything goes horribly wrong. Good luck and goodbye. It's mind-boggling. It's a couple of days. And I think that process got sped up by COVID. Like, they realized, like, we don't need to keep people here that long. And so they try to get you in and out as quickly as possible. There's a couple, I mean, we were there. So it was that first night that we had to wait, the waiting game night. And then we were there 2 more nights after he was born. So that was how long it took before we got out. But the first time I heard him or felt him or experienced him doing a number 2, I was on the couch, this little, even smaller couch, by the way. Postpartum couch was even worse than the couch in the delivery room. But it did extend out. It extended. It was like one of these ones you could extend and make it longer. So when I figured that out, I felt like it was going to be better, but no, I wasn't better. Not that I'm complaining, honey. I'm not complaining. I'm fine. Everything is fine. I realize your experience was much more painful and uncomfortable than mine. Now, I was holding him, And just, by the way, just holding him the first few times you get to do it, holding your baby, it's like, it is, you feel like a god. Like you're like, I made this. I cannot believe like that this is a real thing I'm experiencing. It is the closest feeling to godliness that I think the human beings ever get to experience. But I was holding him and I felt him shit. And I was like, it was so stupid how happy I was about that. First of all, because it means he's happy, he's healthy and functioning as he's supposed to be, and his little digestive system is working properly. But he farts and sharts like a fully grown, disgusting man. Like the noises that this child emits from his asshole are truly astonishing. Like I would try to do like it's like a, but it'll last like 45 seconds. It's so ridiculous. I mean, I've taken some nasty shits in my life. Like I used to live a pretty unhealthy lifestyle. But this kid, off of just pure breast milk, it's like a volcanic eruption in his diaper. And he likes to go to the bathroom while he's feeding. So like he'll be on my wife's breast. I can't believe I call it that now. On her titty. And that makes me feel better. And less adult and more immature, which I'm comfortable with. And he'll just he'll just, like, I'll be asleep. It'll be like 3 a.m. She'll be doing a feeding and I'll wake up to just like this fucking explosion right next to my head. But it's crazy. Like, you don't know this about babies until you've experienced it with one. And it's like, I just can't believe the farts and the shits this kid rips. It's amazing. I mean, but it's cute. That's the sick part. Like, anybody else shitting, I want nothing to do with it. If I can hear you shit in the bathroom, like, it's one of the things I hate about public restrooms. When you're at the urinal and there's some disgusting, fully grown ingrate in the stall next to you taking a dump, hearing somebody else's bodily functions is the worst. It makes my skin crawl. But when it's this little baby boy, it's cute. Now it's funny to me and amazing, and I love it. I love his little poops, or huge, giant shits as they are. Disgusting, disgusting shits, but I love them. Also, he's got his little weenus in there in that diaper that he does pee-pees with. That's how it works if you're a woman and you didn't know. If you're a girl, we pee out of our penises. And I don't know why you wouldn't know that. I'm tired. All right, give me a break. But the other night, so like the stream is shocking. Like, the distance he can get on a piss is crazy. It seems like scientifically and mathematically impossible how far the kid can pee. So the other night, my wife's got him on the edge of the bed and she's changing his diaper. And I wake up and like I lean over there. I wear a sleep mask to sleep now because she needs the light when she breastfeeds him. And so when they turn the light on at night, sometimes I can stay asleep or whatever if I've got the sleep mask on, and get myself some extra Z's. So I pull the sleep mask off and I put it on top of my forehead, right? Like I'm like a pair of sunglasses almost. And I lean over there and I'm like, I like to let him hold my finger when he's getting his diaper changed or when he's doing stuff at any point, really. I just love how he holds my finger. It's the cutest, most amazing thing ever, just like his shits and everything else about him. And he's holding my finger and she's changing his fucking diaper. This kid shoots a stream of pee. His little weenus is like, folded back, aiming towards him. But he shoots it over his head, over his shoulder, really, into my head. He pissed on my head. But God's be good, I had this fucking eye mask or this sleep mask on my forehead. So it just kind of like bounced off. But so he's peed on me a couple times, but that was the most amazing one where I was just like, how? Because I was he's like holding my fingers like several feet that he pissed into the night sky, all up on my sleep mask, which I had to put in the washing machine. But yeah, it's crazy. The bodily functions of a baby are magical and inexplicably large and gross. And and the distance on the P is just something else. But not to get too cheesy on you people, but let's be frank, this is among the most naturally cheesy topics possible. Having your first child is just, there's cheese. This whole episode has been a lot of cheese. I've teared up multiple times. It is what it is. But I am so proud of my wife. I had a rough few years last few years in terms of mental health and huge life transitions between work and at home. And I am not sure how well I would have handled pregnancy, much less childbirth, if she had not been such a rock for me, such a source of stability and calm. And I'm so happy for my son that he has a mommy who is so strong and so committed to giving her children the safety, nourishment, and life they deserve. I love you so much, and I'm just so thankful for you and the person that you are and the mom that you are. You are amazing. I'm so proud of you. But back to baby RJ. He really likes my glasses. Like I've been wearing glasses a lot because we're wiped all the time now, and I'm not putting my contacts in very often. So I've noticed that he really, really likes to look at my glasses because babies, if you didn't know this, they can't see color or much of anything beyond 8 to 10 inches away for the first couple months of their lives. So no color yet, just black and white. And then they can see like shapes, but only like 8 to 10 inches. So, he doesn't really know what we look like yet. He's mostly going off of our voices and sound and whatnot. But when I wear my glasses, they're square frames on my face. And I can tell he really identifies with these. So it's funny because I know that right now for my son, like his dad is just like two square blobs. Like I'm two black square blobs on a face that he can't really make out. But he stares at my glasses so intently and he's so interested in them. And he is the cutest fucking thing I have ever seen. Like when I get to hold him and he squeezes my finger and looks at me, man, nothing else in the world matters at all. Just everything else just fades away. It is just me and him, and it is magical. I am blessed in a lot of ways. I'm blessed to be a stepdad and get to be a part of my stepdaughter's life, and I've seen just how much fun it is to watch her learn and grow and become a little person. And I'm looking forward to that same experience with my son as he exits this potted plant phase eventually and becomes a little person of his own. I'm looking forward to that more than I've ever looked forward to anything in my life. And I'll say this as far as negatives go. The thing people warned me about the most leading up to the birth, like when I asked questions on Twitter, like if any new dads out there, like what advice do you have for me or whatever, it was obnoxious how many people were like, yeah, you're not going to get much sleep the first few months. Get your sleep now. And they definitely weren't wrong, but one of the ways I've been combating sleep deprivation without having to absolutely drown myself in coffee and deal with a hardcore crash in the afternoon is Magic Mind, our newest sponsor here on the Ross Bolen podcast. Obviously, parents of newborns deal with being tired mostly by upping their coffee intake. But as somebody who gets jittery and anxious when I have more than 1 or 2 cups, I've been looking for something to help me maintain my energy and focus throughout the day in a more effective way. That's where Magic Mind comes in. I've been taking it right after my morning coffee, just right after coffee for a few weeks, and I found it to be incredibly helpful at keeping my energy and focus up without the devastating crash that several cups of coffee usually brings me. It comes in a little bottle, a little shot you just toss back. I just keep them in my fridge right next to the coffee maker. I grab one every morning. I drink my cup of coffee, and then I crush one of these Magic Minds. Magic Mind contains matcha, which extends the benefits of caffeine by slowing your body's ability to absorb it, as well as a compound called L-theanine, which reduces stress. And these compounds work together to prevent the spike in cortisol levels and that inevitable crash that comes from ingesting too much caffeine. Matcha is basically nature's extended release version of caffeine. So it helps that coffee and the caffeine that comes with it last longer and your body to digest it a little more efficiently. It also contains Bacopa monnieri. It's a nootropic that improves your attention span, your ability to process and learn new information, and your memory, as well as ashwagandha, an adaptogen that reduces stress and anxiety, plus a bunch of other great ingredients you can read about at magicmind.co/RBP. I have found I'm more productive, more creative, and more calm while staying energized, all without the crash that too much coffee brings. You can too. Just go to magicmind.co/RBP today. Get up to 56% off your subscription when you go in the next 10 days and use my code RBP20. That's magicmind.co, magicmind.co/RBP. Then use code RBP20 for up to 56% off your subscription in the next 10 days or 20% off a one-time purchase. Support the show and your mind at the same damn time with Magic Mind. So I've been doing okay as far as sleep and energy goes. It is significantly harder on the women, as many of you well know. If you're breastfeeding, it's like between the late night and the early morning feedings and the cluster feeding, my God, it is a lot for the moms to handle, which again, whole new level of respect. I didn't even know what cluster feeding was until after he was born. That is not, I remember hearing it mentioned in one of the birthing classes or the newborn care courses that we did, my wife and I, but I didn't absorb it, because I was like, that's not going to be me. But man, so cluster feeding, basically to give you a quick rundown, if you're a newbie like me or inexperienced or ignorant like I was, when a baby is born, the mother doesn't just have like an abundance of milk supply. The baby does something called cluster feeding. First of all, like the first couple times they feed, they're getting something called colostrum. I'm going to butcher it's a different version of breast milk. It's not breast milk like you imagine it to be. It's a different deal the first time they feed, the first few times they feed. And then they do something called cluster feeding on and off the first few weeks of their lives, which is essentially where they feed over and over again, like not just once every 3 hours, like once, like it'd be like feed for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and take 15 minutes off, then need to feed again. Then same thing. Then like they can do this for hours at some points. And that's called cluster feeding. And what it does is it's a signal to the mom's body to bring that milk in. And it lets her know and her body know exactly how much milk to produce for the infant. So my wife's boobs are magnificent now. I mean, they were amazing before, but now they're legitimately distracting. Like, I'll just watch the kid eat, because not only is it like magical, you're just like, again, like this alien thing where you just are like, really in this case, mammal thing, where you're just like, wow, we really are animals. Like, we are little, I mean, when we start out as these little animals who need our moms to feed us, so that we survive. And obviously, I'm aware that there's like formula and other options outside of breastfeeding, but we're doing the breastfeeding thing. It's magical, but also her boobs, my God, they are something else. So now I understand why so many men have boob fetishes and fascinations. Like, that shit definitely starts as an infant, and my boy is definitely going to be a boob guy. There's absolutely no doubt. It's ridiculous, but I mean, psychology is kind of weird. Anyway, I asked the supporters of our show on patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast to ask some questions for today's show. Again, patreon.com/Ross Bolen podcast is the place you can go and subscribe to support me and RBP and get even more episodes. We do an ad-free exclusive episode just for Patreon every week. Obviously, I haven't the last couple weeks that I've taken off, but we're getting back in the swing of things now. We did one earlier today, in fact. So I'm going to answer some of these questions from people on Patreon. First, from Dalton. Did the definition of the word love change for you when you held RJ for the first time? It did when I held mine. It's such a strong feeling now that I can't even define it. How would you have defined it before, and how do you define it now? Especially as somebody who has been through a divorce, that's been through a failed marriage, and whose parents are divorced, and I had to witness their marriage fail as a teenager. Love has always been kind of a confusing thing for me. And when I met my wife, my now wife, and her stepdaughter, was the first big shift where I was like, damn, because it's just as a parent, like the love you have as a parent is a totally different version than what you have when it's just a romantic relationship, right? And I mean that from a marriage standpoint, even. Your relationship shifts from just being romantic to this greater level of respect and admiration for each other as you're a part of the upbringing of another life, and the creation of another life. And that shift happened for me. The first version of that shift happened for me when I met my stepdaughter and fell in love with her and her mother. And this was a whole different version of that shift where it's just like nothing else matters. Like it just, like I said earlier, everything else feels so insignificant by comparison that my ego is struggling. Like it doesn't matter. I don't matter anymore the way that I used to myself, right? Where you have this version of ego before you're a parent where it's like your needs are so important. And that shift is a strong one once you have a baby, and it's not altogether instinctive. Like a lot of it takes work to put yourself in the back seat and remember that there's something more important than you. And that's been the difference in love for me. And it's one that I have with my wife and with my stepdaughter already. But I think one of the really cool things about becoming a dad myself now with RJ is that it's given my love for my wife and my stepdaughter even more respect too. And just a whole nother level of like, oh, this is what I need to be. Like, this is how I need to look at it. Instead of sort of this like, I mean, I even remember, just to be honest with you, there were points where my stepdaughter would like, she'd like come into our room at night and want to sleep with me and my wife, and I'd be like, oh, come on, like this is like it's taking away my time, right? Or like it's an inconvenience to me. Not all the time, but this would happen on occasion. Like selfishness and my ego would try to get back in the front seat, and this has shifted that to where it's like it's just so much easier for me to process step parenting too, not just parenting RJ, but also my stepdaughter. And that's the way love has sort of changed for me. And I mean, obviously, just like I said, looking at him, holding him doing anything, taking a shit, is I love that. And that's not a thing I had experienced before. I love my wife a lot, but I've never enjoyed listening to her take a poop. That's not So that's how I would define it now. It's like your ego shifts in a way that allows you a larger capacity for love than you've ever experienced before. Next question from Jared. Not that Jared, but from Jared. Have you noticed any changes in your stepdaughter now that she has a new brother? Is she more excited, more jealous? She has been awesome so far. It's a big transition for her on top of a lot of big transitions, like me joining her life and us making a family and me being a part of it. And we moved from one side of the city to the other, and she started a new school, and she's handled it all like shockingly well, all things considered. And she's the sweetest big sister. She loves her baby brother. She tries to be so helpful, and she's so funny, man. Like she tries to emulate like my wife, everything that she does. Like she has this little toy baby, like a baby doll, right? But it's kind of a big one. It's not small, that she carries around, and that she'll try to she wants to feed it. Like she'll like hold it up to herself. She'll hold it up to herself like she's gonna feed it. And no, she's been awesome. It's been cool to see her. She wants to take care of him for sure, and she doesn't realize that she's not really capable of that yet. She can't really help all that much yet while he's this small and he needs his mom. And she's still wrapping her head around like what that looks like. Why, like she keeps asking me like, why can't you feed the baby? Because when her mom has to go do breastfeeding, she can't play with her, obviously. So she's like, Roro, why can't you why can't you feed the baby? And I'm like, well, Roro doesn't have the necessary equipment or the milk supply, but I would if I could. But yeah, so I mean, we're 3 weeks in, she's still adapting to this new version of like our home life right now, but she's been awesome so far. She's done such a good job, and I'm so proud of her and so excited to see what she looks like as a big sister in the years to come. From Blake, he asked, what was the biggest shocker so far in parenthood that no one warned you about? I mean, probably the pee stream, man. Probably the distance that the baby can get on a piss. That never came up. Nobody told me that, like that what his little weenus would be capable of in terms of shooting urine at a distance. It's fucking astounding. And I wish somebody had warned me because I took that headshot that I might never recover from. But yeah, as far as a shocker, I was pretty well prepared. I mean, this is one of the big benefits of going MILF hunting after you get a divorce is that you got somebody. My wife already had been through one childbirth and raised one infant and my stepdaughter. And so she was able to prepare me a lot. And she was so prepared herself that it's been less shocking than it probably typically is for new parents for me. And I'm very thankful for that. And it's one of the massive, massive positives that, again, comes from marrying a mom that I didn't really see coming. That's been shocking, I guess. Like I didn't factor that in as much as I probably could have. Like I loved my wife and wanted her to be my wife because I saw how good of a mom she was, but I didn't factor in like what that would do for me in terms of lessening the shock value. So yeah. Next question from Benjamin. How are all the dogs doing with RJ home now? Also shockingly well, and I mean this like earnestly. We have 4 dogs, all right? We've got Bruce and Bella who are next to me in the studio on the ground, and then we've got Bruce and Bella are both very small. If you don't know, they're toy Australian Shepherds. They're like Bruce weighs like 10, 11 pounds. Bella weighs 8, 9 pounds. And then my wife had 2 dogs that we are now part of my blended family. One of them is a Cavalier Pomeranian that weighs about 12 pounds. So that's 3 little dogs. And then we got a big guy. His name is Harvey, Big Harv, as I like to call him. And he's a rescue from Hurricane Harvey in Houston, hence the name Harvey. But he weighs 90 pounds. So he's a large motherfucker. And these dogs are all ridiculous in their own right and in their own ways. They're insane. I love them all very, very, very much. They're the best. I fucking love dogs. If you know anything about me, you know that. And they've been really good, man. Like they're still like, I think Bruce is like trying to figure out what the baby is still. He's like, but they've all been really cool about it. They've been really sweet about it. Like Bella goes up and licks his ears a lot, which is funny because she only has 1 tooth left. So her tongue just kind of slides out the side of her mouth and like laps up and down his ear. But they've been great. I was really worried about this before he was born, like how Bruce and Bella would handle a baby, because my other 2, Penny and Harvey, have dealt with a baby before, but I didn't know how Bruce and Bella would take it. They've been awesome. I'm super proud of them too. That side of the adjustment has not been nearly as difficult as I thought it would be. Just like with my stepdaughter, like obviously I was worried about how she would take it, and she's done so well. So I feel super, super lucky and fortunate that we've had a fairly easy transition so far, 3 weeks in, as far as the 4 fucking dogs and everything goes at home. Now I'll say this: 4 dogs is a lot. If you're gonna have kids, you need to have a large piece of property, and we probably don't have quite as big a one as we should, considering the amount of canines we've got running around. But yeah, it's been good so far. From Savage, another question. Said, I wouldn't consider myself to be much of a baby/kid person. Don't really find them cute, and they often annoy me. Not really sure if I want any myself. Would you say having your own kid changes your entire perspective about them for the better? Yeah, I mean, look, I've always liked kids. Obviously, I married a woman that had a child already. Like, I like kids. I really do. I've never struggled with children. I don't really struggle to connect with people on the whole. That's just something I'm good at. It's one of the reasons I have this as a profession. But I'll say this, I think even for people who really struggle with children or the aspect of having kids or the idea of having kids, it really changes you, because if like you see yourself in the kid too, right? Like it's like, it just changes, it shifts your perspective in every possible way. And I know people who don't like kids who love their kids. They don't like other people's kids, but they love their kids. And I think that holds true for most people if you're not like a sociopath. Like it's difficult to not love a baby that's your baby. Like I don't know how that, and now that being said, a lot of people do struggle with the first several weeks and even couple months of having a newborn because they don't do much. So it's hard to connect with them for some people. That hasn't been a thing for me, which I also feel lucky about. But like, I just love this little dude so much that it's like, it's the fact that he's in the potted plant phase, as it is called and referred to, where he doesn't do anything but shit and piss and sometimes on me. I don't even care. I'm so stoked that he's here and that I made it to this point where I could have him and experience fatherhood and be a part of his life and help and raise him with my wife. It's overridden everything else. So I think for a lot of people, they feel that way before they have kids, and then they have their kid and they're like, okay, I like kids now. Yeah. Next question from L says, I think RJ looks like you, but I'm only seeing still pictures. Our family and friends confirming this. I've had some people tell me like, holy shit, he looks exactly like you. But not that many people, I guess. And I don't see as much of me as I see my wife. Like I think that's like a way that people operate. Like I don't recognize my own features in the baby. I see her and her features, right? But then every once in a while, he'll like turn his head a certain way or like smirk or do something where I'm like, oh my God, it's me. And I got to tell you, that's some magical shit there where you're just like, wow, what? Like one day I noticed he has my ears. I was like, oh, those are my ears. Like that blew my mind. But every time he does something where I get a glimpse of myself in him is like a whole nother layer of narcissism that comes into play. Cause I'm just like, holy shit, he's me, he's mine, he's me. I made this. It's crazy. But yeah, I can't wait to see like how he looks as he goes through. His face changes every day. Every day, his eyes get a little bigger. His face gets a little more animated. He makes all these different faces. I take so many pictures of him because I want to make sure I remember all of them. And that part of it has been really, really cool. But yeah, so I've had some people say that he looks like me, but I think they're just being nice. I think he looks exactly like my wife. Like he's got all these features that are her. I'll say that he has like my wife's lip structure, but my shape. Like my, whatever this thing is in the middle of your lips that like dips the top lip, the little bow tie or whatever it's called, that thing. He's got that thing that's like, that's also mine, which is cool. Next question from Devin. Oh, and this is just related to the show. He said, the future of RBP, new co-host, is Jared no longer on the show? And then the second part of this question was also, any new dad shoes to add to the collection? Any new dad shoes added to the collection? And if not, what's your favorite dad shoe of all time? First, I'll answer the last one. Yes, I bought some Puma Velofaces shoes that I put a picture up of on Instagram, but there's some pretty gigantic, clunky dad shoes, and I love them. I'm wearing them on my feet right now as we speak. I've worn them several days already, and I've only had them for a couple of weeks. And I'm definitely leaning into like dadcore fashion-wise. Like I'm wearing a Dada shirt today that says Dada on it that my wife got me before my son was born. And he has one, my son has a matching one that says Lil Bro, and then his big sister has one that says Big Sis, and my wife has one that says Mama, and I don't care if you think that is lame, you can go fuck yourself. So I'm leaning into it for sure, and I'm stoked on like a new phase of fashion in my life. So yeah, I bought the Puma Velofaces, and it is awesome. Velophassis, Puma. I've never owned a pair of Pumas. My first pair of Pumas, but these are sick. I really like them. I can't even remember why I bought them. I ordered them when I was like really tired. It may have been in the hospital, honestly, that I was like, I gotta get dad shoes. And then they just showed up, and I was like, what the fuck have I done? These are stupid as hell. But I put them on. They're super comfortable, and I love them. Now, as far as the show goes, for those of you who don't know, my co-host for the last couple years on the Ross Bolen podcast has been Jared Borslow, one of my co-workers here at Bolen Media. He runs Formula Bone, our F1 show here at Bolen Media, Formula Bone. His nickname is J-Bone. Follow Formula Bone at Formula Bone everywhere if you are an F1 fan, and subscribe on youtube.com/@Formula Bone, where Jared has amassed over 75,000 subscribers to watch his show where he talks about F1 and has covered now. Last year, he did a full season, and before that, like a half a season, so like a season and a half of F1 so far. We're really excited about the 2023 season, which starts in March. Formula Bone for all your F1 needs. I love Jared like almost like a brother at this point. Like this dude and me, we went through a lot together. He came back into my life after working with me at our previous company, at a time when I really, really needed him, and stepped up huge and was amazing. And he's gone on to the next phase of his life, living in Wisconsin with his fiance. They're getting married this year. I've known this was coming since he started work. Like when he started, he told me like, look, I'm down to work on Bolen Media with you. I want to do this. It's going to be awesome. But I am planning on moving to Wisconsin. And I told him to give me 2 years. I said, look, just give me 2 years. And then you go do your thing. I still want you to work with me and work on Bolen Media and for Bolen Media. And we'll see what that looks like. But just give me 2 years here in Austin. And he did that. And now he's in Wisconsin. And I'm so stoked for him and his fiance and their next phase of life. As far as RBP goes, like it's not just because of the move. Formula Bone is so fucking big at this point that like he has to. It's like for strategically, it would be insane for me to require him to be my regular co-host on this show. He doesn't have the time. He needs to be focused on that show, his show that he is running, and it's his baby right now. So Jared will be on RBP on occasion through Zoom, but as far as being like the co-host every day, no, he's not going to be that. It just doesn't make strategic sense for Bolen Media on the whole. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do here yet as far as getting another co-host goes or whatever. I will in the coming weeks. Content Kade, as he was previously known, also known as Producer Kade, who's producing today's video in full and produces all of the video that's recorded at Bolen Media headquarters now, produces the video for every episode of Oysters, Clams, and Clickers, as it is currently called. And Banging the Can and everything I do. His name's Kade Orris, not just, I guess I shouldn't just go by his nickname, but he's also going to be filling in on occasion. Next week, I think we're going to have Dave Ruff from Washed Media and the Circling Back podcast, one of my good friends and former coworkers as well, who's definitely one of the funniest people I know, Dave. And I love doing shows with him. I think he's going to come on and kind of guest co-host, and that's how I'm going to handle it for the foreseeable future. Between having Jared zoom in on occasion, having producer Kade step in and sit with me and do the show on occasion, and then having guest co-hosts like Dave or whoever's available fill in. That's how I'm going to handle it until I make another decision, because it's like I'm just feeling things out currently. We've had like 4 co-hosts in as many years on this show, and it has been annoying, I know, for the audience and for me. Way more so for me than for y'all, I promise, to just constantly be shuffling and losing co-hosts or whatever. But that's why I'm going to take my time with it. I don't want to just fill somebody else in, and Jared was so good, and I had so much fun with him that like if and when I replace him with a full-time co-host, I want to make sure it's somebody that I'm really going to stick with, so that we don't have that constant influx of new people. But between now and then, it'll be a lot of fun in this transition phase. I promise you. I'm excited. As you can tell today, I don't really struggle talking by myself for an hour or more. So even if there is nobody available, like you'll still get your show. I promise you. We're in a transition phase, man. So that's how it's going to be. Thank you to everybody on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast for continuing to support the show. This week's episode, for example, features producer Kade as my co-host while we take hotline calls from the RBP gang. And we had a lot of fun, so go check that episode out. That concludes the question-based segment of today's episode, which is also brought to you by Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide. Whether you are selling merchandise for your podcast or handmade kaleidoscopes, Shopify simplifies selling online and in person so you can focus on successfully growing your business. Shopify covers every sales channel, from an in-person POS system to an all-in-one e-commerce platform. It even lets you sell across social media marketplaces like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Packed with industry-leading tools ready to ignite your growth, Shopify gives you complete control over your business and your brand without having to learn any new skills in design or code. And thanks to 24/7 help and an extensive business course library, Shopify is there to support your success every step of the way. Selling merchandise for our podcasts here at Bolen Media has been a massive supplemental revenue source for us, allowing us to provide our biggest fans and supporters with shirts and hats and coffee mugs that you can wear and use in real life to show your support for what we are doing at Bolen Media. Shopify can be the platform that enables you to connect with your supporters in the same way. I've used Shopify extensively in the past. It is amazing. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/RBP, all lowercase, shopify.com/RBP to take your business to the next level today. That's SHOPIFY, shopify.com/RBP. Make sure to use our URL, all lowercase, to show your support for the show as you take the next big step for your business. All right, let's close out with some classic RBP. So those of you who are new here can get a feel for a more typical episode and typical show banter, as it were. Except in this case, it's not banter, it's just me. Time for our insane headline of the day. And this one comes from Bloomberg, but it's probably not what you would expect hearing that it's a Bloomberg headline. Winnie-the-Pooh horror film is a scary sight for copyright holders. Winnie-the-Pooh horror film is a scary sight for copyright holders. So it says, English author A.A. Milne's Winnie-the-Pooh has appeared in dozens of enchanting and wholesome films and radio adaptations since 1926. Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey isn't one of them. The horror film, made for less than $100,000 and due for release in the U.S., 2 days ago on Wednesday, finds Milne's endearing characters, the famous talking teddy bear and his friend Piglet, suffering from starvation after Christopher Robin leaves for college and is no longer around to feed them. They kill and eat their donkey friend Eeyore and then set off on a murderous spree. Holy shit. First of all, huge fan of Winnie-the-Pooh as a kid. Love Winnie-the-Pooh. Really love Eeyore. Especially as somebody who's dealt with depression. Eeyore, extremely relatable donkey. Love Eeyore. Now my stepdaughter loves Winnie-the-Pooh. We've watched Winnie-the-Pooh movies and TV shows and stuff for months now. She kind of caught on to him about 6 months ago, Winnie-the-Pooh. So he's been a big part of my home life. And now I'm finding out that there's a horror movie called Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey that was made for less than 100 G's, where they fucking kill and eat Eeyore? This is not right. It says the film isn't expected to be a big hit at the box office, with the website Hollywood Stock Exchange forecasting just $9 million in domestic ticket sales over 4 weeks. $100,000 into $9 million? Why the fuck aren't we doing this with every children's platform? We need to turn Blippi into a horror movie immediately. What? $100,000 to a $9 million domestic ticket sales in 4 weeks? It says, but the picture hints at a scary future for major studios whose copyrights on famous characters are nearing expiration. So apparently this whole thing came to pass because it says Walt Disney Company has controlled the rights to Winnie-the-Pooh since 1961. And they kept depictions of Milne's talking animals true to the spirit of the family-friendly material. The copyright expired, though, in January of 2022. Since then, Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends have been available to the public for other purposes. It says Blood and Honey, I still can't believe that's the name, was written by Riz Frake Waterfield, an English horror film producer whose Instagram bio says he's been, quote, ruining childhood memories since 1991. Jesus. It says Disney declined to comment. The film is being released in more than 1,500 U.S. theaters by Fathom Events, a distribution company owned by the 3 largest cinema chains. And it says Blood and Honey has taken in $1 million since its premiere in Mexico last month. Now, I'm going to be honest. I'm tempted. I mean, there's got to be a video-on-demand version of this, right? For like $10 or whatever that I can pay to watch this tonight. Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey. They murder and eat Eeyore and set off on a murderous spree. I mean, just for the sake of being able to I feel like I have to watch this. I think I have to watch this. Winnie-the-Pooh, Blood and Honey. That will do it for today's show. Thank you all for being here, for listening, and for supporting me. If you are new, welcome. I am back in the saddle at work and will be releasing new episodes of this show, the Ross Bolen Podcast, or RBP as it is known, on a weekly basis. Plus, every week we will have an ad-free premium episode available to those who support the show on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast. So subscribe there today for even more of me talking. Please support our sponsors by hitting the links in the description of this episode and using our dedicated codes, as that is how we pay the bills here at Bolen Media and afford me the ability to do this full-time as the founder of our company, Bolen Media. To check out our other shows, including Formula Bone, hosted by Jared Borslow. Go to bolenmedia.com, hit bolenmedia.com/shop to grab yourself some RBP merch. This episode of the Ross Bolen Podcast is presented by Bolen Media, and video of today's show was produced by Kade Orris. I will be back next week, but now it is time for me to get back home and spend time with baby RJ. Until next time, peace be with you, and also with you.